In its investigation into the sniper's nest on the sixth floor, the Warren Commission included in its exhibits a photograph taken of an unidentified latent fingerprint discovered on Box 29. In 1998, A. Nathan Darby, a retired lieutenant commander with the Austin Police Department and certified latent fingerprint examiner, conducted a blind test on an inked print and the latent print on Box 29 sent to him by researchers Barb McClellan and Jay Harrison. Darby had no idea the latent print was from the sixth floor of the Texas School Book Depository, nor did he know the ink print was from the left little finger of a convicted murderer, Malcolm E. Mac Wallace. Darby found 34 points of congruency between the two and was certain they were a match, which he stated in a 1998 affidavit. At the time of the assassination, Wallace was 42, a Texan native and once promising University of Texas at Austin alumnus whose football career was shattered by a spinal injury. Plagued by alcoholism and a wrecked home life, Wallace became nothing short of an assassin, enslaved to his handlers, men who would instantly drop their protection of Wallace if he showed any wavering. These men were allegedly attorney Edward Clark and his chief client, Lyndon Baines Johnson. While a vague print on a box may indeed be Wallace's, it certainly in and of itself does not indicate he had anything to do with the assassination. However, as fingerprint expert Sebastian Latona explained in his Warren Commission testimony, quote, fingerprints can only be taken from a surface like cardboard within 24 hours of its origin, end quote. If Mac Wallace was on the sixth floor of the book depository, what was he doing there? Who was with him? And did anyone see him? Just a few weeks before his death in 1994, author Sample and Cullum obtained a videotaped confession from an Oklahoma Chickasaw Indian named Loy Factor, who claimed he was hired by a mysterious man named Wallace to fire upon President Kennedy from the sixth floor of the book depository. Factor stated he never shot the rifle when the moment came from the fusillade of shots, only that he ejected a shell. Factor said the other shooters on the floor were Lee Harvey Oswald and Mac Wallace, and a young woman called Ruth Ann oversaw the sixth floor operation and communicated with persons unknown by walkie talkie. In 1971, while in prison for the murder of his wife, he said he did not commit. Factor became friendly with co author Column, then in his early 20s. Column and Sample later published The Men on the Sixth Floor. It's a remarkable story, anchored by Factor's reticence and regret over his casual meeting of Wallace while glimpsing the motorcade of dignitaries attending Sam Rayburn's funeral in 1961. That purported encounter, where Wallace mistook Factor's ethnicity by first speaking to him in Spanish, allegedly led ultimately to Factor's recruitment as a shooter. Factor had no knowledge of Wallace besides his name, and when he was shown photographs of Mac Wallace with his horn-rimmed glasses, Factor instantly recognized the face of the man who hired him. By then, in his early 40s, Wallace was leaning on the heavier side, and a figure resembling Wallace's physique was seen by a number of witnesses. Arnold Rowland in Dealey Plaza saw two men on the sixth floor, one holding a rifle minutes before shots rang out. Carolyn Walther on Houston Street saw two men at a window, one in a brown suit coat, the other in white shirt and holding a rifle. Steelworker Richard R. Carr saw a man in tan jacket and horn-rimmed glasses standing at sixth floor window. Minutes after the assassination, Carr sees that man walk briskly from Dealey Plaza down Commerce Street. Ruby Henderson, across the street from the book depository on Elm, also saw two men at the window. On the sixth floor of the Dallas jail, John Powell and other inmates glimpsed two men on the sixth floor of the book depository. It's time we looked at an individual named O.B. Graham. Graham was pastor of the Abundant Life Center, and he also hosted the Abundant Life Ministry of Dr. O.B. Graham on KTVT Channel 11, so Fort Worth base station. There was another program on that station, the Dan Smoot Report. Smoot was a former FBI agent, and he was acquainted with Joseph Miltier, by the way. So O.B. Graham owned and managed the Abundant Life Temple. That's the Dallas church where witnesses claim the shooter of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit fled shortly after the assassination of the president, right after the murder of Officer Tippit. What's interesting about O.B. Graham is a little known fact that he was a Civil Air Patrol chaplain. So here you have Mac Wallace on the left, O.B. Graham on the right. From a distance, the two could be mistaken for being very similar. Both were about the same age, same physique, and Dealey Plaza witnesses, as I mentioned, saw a heavyset man in a brown suit coat wearing horn-rimmed glasses on the sixth floor. Could this have been O.B. Graham instead of Mac Wallace? If Wallace played a role in striking down the president, it was not his first experience with murder. In 1952, Wallace was convicted by a Texas jury for the murder of John Kinzer. Kinzer was shot to death by Wallace on October 22nd, 1951, in the pro shop of Kinzer's miniature golf venue he owned. Playing the part of a betrayed husband, an argument preceded the killing, overheard by several witnesses. Ostensibly upset that Kinzer was involved with not only Wallace's wife, Mary Andre, for all intents and purposes a bisexual and nymphomaniac, but also a sometime woman of the street named Josepha Johnson, the younger sister of then freshman Senator Lyndon Johnson. And I'd recommend on this point, Chapter 7, Murders in Bar McClellan's Blood, Money, and Power, How LBJ Killed JFK. All told, Wallace was supposedly linked to 9 murders. Kinzer, Josepha Johnson, who died on Christmas Day 1961 of a cerebral hemorrhage, by the way, she was 49, and Department of Agriculture investigator Henry Marshall, who uncovered a cotton allotment scheme on land purchased by Billy Sol Estes that linked back directly to LBJ. Marshall's death was ruled a suicide, even though he was shot 5 times in the side and had carbon monoxide in his system, a favorite Wallace death technique, apparently. Simply put, Mac Wallace was Lyndon Johnson's hitman, and in this way, according to Bar McClellan, target JFK was no different from those other targets, an expendable nuisance, a disposable hero. Billy Sol Estes wrote his own memoir, the self-titled Billy Sol Estes, A Texas Legend, in which he claimed insider knowledge of the Kennedy assassination. He does tell a wonderful story about John Wilkes Booth, where legend has Booth escaping to Granbury, Texas, as John St. Helene, and later committed suicide in Enid, Oklahoma. He ran a saloon adjoining the local opera house, supposedly. It's hard to take the Sol Estes book seriously. For instance, quote, the boarding house where Oswald lived was a CIA safe house at the time. Wallace had access to the Payne's garage where Oswald's gun and other possessions were stored prior to the assassination. Estes also said that the Nash Rambler station wagon was Wallace's, and he thought the 1971 deaths of Wallace, Cliff Carter, and LBJ attorney John Cofer were staged somehow. So it's a rip-roaring read, and Estes died in 2013. A video circulating YouTube claims to be an authentic audio recording of Billy Sol Estes and LBJ aide Cliff Carter discussing LBJ ordering Mac Wallace to kill the president. I've seen nothing about this tape, no chatter or posts or forums or anything like that. And it raises suspicions not only of its authenticity, but what AI technology can do to pass off fake audiovisual as actual historical media, if that's what it is. I've linked that video in the description below.